Chosen one, why are you awake at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, feeling like God has forgotten your address? Why does your heart pound with unexplained urgency when everyone else seems to be living in spiritual autopilot? Why do you feel like you're carrying something heavy that you can't even name? Stop, right there. If you are hearing this right now, it is not by accident. You didn't stumble here. Heaven has an appointment with you tonight. Let me tell you something that's going to shake you to your core. Right now, as you're sitting there in that chair, in that room, in that house you call home, you are not alone. You think you are, but you're not. Because while you've been praying into what feels like empty air, while you've been wondering if anyone up there is even listening, God has been walking up your front steps. He's not coming tomorrow. He's not coming next week, when you feel more ready, when your life is cleaner, when your faith is stronger. He's coming tonight, personally, intimately, into your space. Your house has been so quiet, hasn't it? Not just physically quiet, spiritually quiet. Like you're living in a dimly lit sanctuary where your prayers echo off the walls and come back to you unanswered. You've been sitting in rooms that feel abandoned by grace, wondering if you've been forgotten by the one who promised never to leave you. But what if I told you that silence was preparation? What if I told you that God has been at your door this entire time, not knocking like a stranger, but standing there like a father who already owns the deed to the house? Here's the shocking truth they don't want you to know. You've been living like a guest in your own spiritual inheritance. You've been tiptoeing through your own life, apologizing for taking up space in a kingdom that was built for you before you drew your first breath. Tonight, that changes. Before we go deeper into this divine encounter, I want to pause and thank every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and plant that seed of faith. But right now, this very moment, I need you to feel what's happening in the atmosphere around you. That stirring in your chest, that electricity in the air, that sense that something sacred is about to unfold. If you feel that pull inside, if something in your spirit is confirming that this message found you for a reason, type "I'm ready" in the comments. Don't think about it, just respond. Because what's about to happen requires your participation. God is coming to your house, not as a visitor, as the rightful owner reclaiming what was always his. And when he walks through that door, nothing, absolutely nothing, will ever be the same. Are you ready for this divine invasion? Why has your life felt like you're swimming upstream while everyone else floats downstream? Why does it seem like every victory you've won came with a price tag that others never had to pay? Why have you carried burdens that weren't even yours to carry, felt pain that cut deeper than it should, endured trials that would have broken weaker souls? Stop asking why it happened. Start asking why it happened to you. Dear chosen one, I need you to lean in close, because what I'm about to tell you will shatter every lie the enemy has whispered about your suffering. That depression that visits you at 3 a.m., that wasn't random. Those financial struggles that seemed to come in waves just when you thought you were getting ahead, that wasn't bad luck. Those relationships that ended in betrayal when you gave your whole heart, that wasn't your fault. It was targeting. You see, the enemy doesn't waste ammunition on empty vessels. He doesn't deploy his best weapons against people who pose no threat to his kingdom. But you've been in his crosshairs since the day you drew your first breath, because hell recognized what heaven placed inside you. Not punishment, preparation. Listen to me carefully. Every single attack on your life, every door that slammed shut when breakthrough seemed within reach, every night you cried yourself to sleep, wondering if God had forgotten your address. It was all strategic warfare against your destiny, because the enemy saw what God was building in you through the fire. Not punishment, preparation. In Jeremiah 1-5, God declares something that will change how you see every struggle you've endured. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. Did you catch that? Before you even existed, you were already chosen. Before you made your first mistake, you were already marked for purpose. Before the world told you who you were, God had already decided who you would become. But here's where it gets deeper. Here's where the mystery unfolds. God didn't just know you. He prepared a specific assignment that could only be fulfilled by someone with your exact scars, your exact story, your exact combination of pain and perseverance. You weren't chosen because you were perfect. You were chosen because you were moldable. Think about a master blacksmith for a moment. When he takes raw iron and thrusts it into the blazing furnace, is he trying to destroy it? When he pulls it out glowing red hot and pounds it with his hammer blow after crushing blow, is he being cruel? No. He's transforming that ordinary metal into something extraordinary, something strong enough to withstand pressure, something sharp enough to cut through opposition, something valuable enough to be treasured. That's been your life, hasn't it? The furnace of suffering, the hammer blows of disappointment, the fire that should have consumed you but instead refined you. You thought you were being punished, but you were being prepared. Not punishment, preparation. Every tear you've cried in secret has been liquid gold being refined in your spirit. Every prayer you whispered when your voice was hoarse from pleading has been building supernatural authority in your voice. Every time you chose to forgive when revenge would have felt better has been developing Christ-like character that this world desperately needs. But why you? Why were you selected for this level of spiritual boot camp when others seem to glide through life untested? Because God saw something in your spirit that could handle the weight. He saw resilience that couldn't be manufactured, only forged. He saw a heart that would choose faith over fear, hope over despair, love over bitterness, even when choosing the harder path made no logical sense. You survived what should have destroyed you. You endured what broke others. You kept believing when believing hurt. And now, right now, you're sitting on the other side of trials that were never meant to defeat you. They were meant to develop you. The question burning in every chosen one's heart is always the same. When will this preparation end? When will I finally step into what I was prepared for? Tonight, beloved, tonight. Because while you've been wondering if God forgot about you, He's been walking toward your front door. While you've been questioning if your prayers were bouncing off heaven's ceiling, He's been climbing your front steps. While you've been feeling abandoned in your struggles, He's been planning a personal visitation that will validate every single thing you've endured. The silence you've interpreted as absence was actually His approach. The delays you've experienced as rejection were actually divine timing being perfected. The isolation you felt was actually sacred preparation for an encounter so intimate, so personal, so life-altering that it could only happen in the secret place of your surrender. God is coming to your house, not next week, not when you feel more ready, tonight. And when He arrives, you're going to understand why every trial was necessary, why every test was precise, why every tear was collected in His bottle of remembrance. Later in this message, I'm going to reveal to you the unmistakable sign that God has truly entered your house. It's not what you think. It's not what you've been taught to look for. But when you see it, when you recognize it, you'll know beyond any shadow of doubt that your season of preparation is over and your time of manifestation has begun. But first, you need to understand exactly what happens when the Creator of the universe decides to make a house call. Because this isn't just a blessing coming your way, this is a complete reconstruction of your reality. Let me ask you something, and I want you to be honest with yourself. When was the last time you sat at your kitchen table at 2 inches the morning, surrounded by bills you can't pay, and whispered to an empty room, "God, where are you?" When was the last time you stood in your hallway, pacing back and forth because your mind wouldn't let you sleep, carrying conversations you should have had, words you should have said, decisions you should have made differently? There are rooms in the house of your soul, aren't there? Rooms you keep locked. Rooms you hope God never sees. The room where you keep your failures. The room where you store your regrets. The room where you've hidden your deepest shame, your ugliest moments, your most desperate hours. You think God doesn't know about those rooms. You think if you just keep the front parlor of your faith clean and presentable, maybe he won't notice the mess behind closed doors. Maybe he won't see the closet where you've stuffed 40 years of what-ifs and if-onlys. But here's what's breaking my heart right now. You've been living like a tenant in your own spiritual house, apologizing for taking up space, tiptoeing past the rooms that hurt too much to enter. Let me tell you about Martha. Luke, chapter 10. She's running around her house, trying to make everything perfect for Jesus. Cleaning, cooking, arranging, stressing. And where's Jesus? He's sitting in the living room, talking with Mary, not inspecting Martha's housekeeping, not checking if the corners are dust-free. He came for relationship, not renovation. But you've been Martha, haven't you? Trying to clean up your act before inviting God in. Waiting until your faith feels stronger, your prayers sound better, your life looks more like the testimonies you hear on Sunday morning. You've been carrying shame about that divorce that blindsided you at 62, that addiction you battled in silence for 23 years, that child who walked away and hasn't called in 8 months, that dream you buried when life got too heavy to carry hope. You think those scars disqualify you. You think those broken places make you unworthy of a personal visit from the Almighty. You think God only comes to houses that have their spiritual real estate in order. That's the lie that's been stealing your joy for decades. Isaiah 57:15 says, "For this is what the high and exalted one says, he who lives forever, whose name is holy. I live in a high and holy place, but also with the one who is contrite and lowly in spirit." Did you catch that? He lives with the broken ones, the contrite ones, the ones who know they're a mess. Your brokenness isn't a barrier to his presence, it's a doorway. But the enemy has been whispering lies, hasn't he? Making you believe that your midnight tears disqualify you from morning mercies. Making you think that your failures cancel out your calling. Making you feel like you've used up all your chances with God. Stop right there. Look at me. Look at me through these words. Your tears at that kitchen table. God counted every one. Psalm 56:8 says, "You keep track of all my sorrows. You have collected all my tears in your bottle." You're pacing in that hallway at 3 a.m. He was pacing with you. Your whispered prayers that felt like they hit the ceiling and bounced back. They went straight to the throne room of heaven. The room where you keep your regrets about your children. The closet where you've hidden your financial failures, the space where you store your health fears, your loneliness, your disappointment with how your life turned out. That's exactly where he's coming. Not to the parlor where you put on your Sunday best faith, not to the guest room where you keep your polished prayers. He's coming to the basement where you've been storing your shame. He's coming to the attic where you've been hiding your hurt. Jesus said in Matthew 11:28, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." He didn't say come when you're fixed. He didn't say come when you're worthy. He said come weary, come burdened, come as you are. And yet that is where he is coming, into the messy rooms, into the closets of what-ifs, into the nights when you thought no one noticed you were barely hanging on. He's not coming with a clipboard to inspect your failures. He's coming with a key to unlock the rooms you've been afraid to enter. He's not coming to condemn the chaos. He's coming to bring order through his presence. That broken marriage you think disqualifies you, he's coming there. That addiction you fought in secret, he's coming there. That child you feel you failed, he's coming there. That dream you let die because life got too hard, he's coming there too. Because God doesn't just want the cleaned up version of you. He wants all of you, the messy, broken, complicated, real you. The you that cries in grocery store parking lots. The you that talks to yourself in empty rooms. The you that sometimes questions if any of this faith stuff is even real. If that's your room, if you've been living in the secret chambers of shame and regret, type "that's me" in the comments. Because you are not alone. There are thousands of us who've been pacing these same hallways, carrying these same burdens, wondering if God really sees our hidden pain. But here's what's about to change everything. God isn't coming as an inspector, He's coming as an renovator. And the room you've been most ashamed of? That's about to become His favorite place to dwell. You've been waiting for a sign, haven't you? Waiting for some cosmic announcement, some burning bush moment, some undeniable miracle that proves God still sees you. But what if I told you that while you've been looking for thunder, He's been walking through your front door? Listen to me carefully, chosen one. When God visits, He doesn't knock like a guest. He walks in like the owner, because you are His dwelling place. 1 Corinthians 3:16 declares with absolute authority, "Know ye not that ye are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwelleth in you?" Not was, not will be, dwelleth. Present tense. Right now. This very moment, as you're sitting there wondering if anybody upstairs cares about your midnight tears. But here's what breaks my heart about God's people today. You've been living like squatters in your own temple. You've been apologizing for existing in a space that was custom built for your spirit before the foundation of the world was laid. You've been whispering prayers like you're bothering someone, instead of speaking with the authority of a child addressing their father. Why? Because you've forgotten who owns the deed to your soul. Let me paint you a picture that's going to revolutionize how you see what's happening in your life right now. Imagine you've been living in a house where the furniture is all wrong. The couch is blocking the window where light should pour in. The table is shoved against the wall where conversation should flow. Everything feels cramped, dark, confused, and you've been living like this for so long, you thought it was normal. But then the rightful owner shows up, not to evict you, to rearrange everything. That's what's happening in your life right now. God isn't coming to condemn the chaos. He's coming to transform it by His very presence. Every room in your heart that's felt cluttered with worry, He's moving that furniture. Every corner that's been dark with doubt, He's opening those curtains. Every space that's felt too small for your dreams, He's knocking down walls you didn't even know were there. This is why your sleep has been restless lately. This is why you've felt that stirring, that sense that something's shifting. This is why old patterns that used to work don't satisfy you anymore. Because when the owner of the house arrives, everything that doesn't belong to His design has to go. And I need you to understand something that's going to shake you to your core. That peace you've been feeling creeping into spaces where panic used to live. That clarity that's cutting through confusion like sunlight through fog. That strength that's rising up in you when you should be feeling weak. Your clarity, your peace, your joy, that's not maturity, that's presence. That's the Spirit of the living God taking up residence in rooms of your heart that have been vacant for too long. That's heaven's atmosphere replacing the toxic air you've been breathing. That's divine order rewriting the chaos that the enemy tried to make you believe was your permanent address. But let me ask you something that's going to cut deep. How long have you been blaming yourself for struggles that were never yours to carry? How many years have you been apologizing for not being strong enough, smart enough, faith-filled enough to fix problems that only God's presence could solve? You've been trying to rearrange the furniture in your own house with your bare hands, when what you needed was the owner to come home and show you where everything belongs. Look at your life right now, really. Look at it. Can you see the evidence? Can you feel the shift that's already begun? Maybe it's subtle. Maybe you can't quite put your finger on it yet. But something is different. You're not reacting to triggers the same way. Situations that used to send you into a spiral now just roll off. Problems that used to consume your thoughts for hours now seem smaller, more manageable. People who used to drain your energy don't have the same access to your peace. What you're experiencing isn't therapy. It's not self-improvement. It's not positive thinking or meditation or any human technique. This is the living God making Himself at home in the temple. He designed specifically for His glory you. And here's what the enemy doesn't want you to realize. This visitation isn't temporary. This isn't God dropping by for a quick visit and then leaving you to manage on your own again. When the Spirit of God moves into a dwelling place, He doesn't pack bags. He hangs pictures. He changes the locks. He puts His name on the mailbox. But I can see some of you sitting there thinking, how do I know this is really happening? How do I know I'm not just imagining this? How do I know God has actually moved in and isn't just passing through? Oh, beloved, that's exactly what I want to tell you next. Because there are 3 undeniable shifts that prove God has moved in 3 unmistakable signs that the owner has taken possession of his property. And when you recognize these signs in your own life, you'll never doubt his presence again. But before I reveal these 3 powerful confirmations, I need you to understand something that will determine whether you recognize them when they appear. Are you ready to stop being a tenant in your own temple and start living like the beloved child of the King that you are? You want to know how you'll recognize God's personal visitation. You want proof that this isn't just another spiritual pep talk? Listen carefully, because what I'm about to tell you will explain why your life has been shifting in ways you couldn't understand. There are 3 unmistakable signs that God has entered your house, and if you've been experiencing these changes, you're not imagining it, you're living it. The first sign: your mind has become your friend. For decades, your thoughts have been like a broken record player, skipping on the same painful grooves. The same worries about money spinning endlessly at 2 a.m. The same regrets about your children, playing on repeat until you wanted to scream. The same desperate calculations about whether you'll have enough time, enough health, enough purpose left. But something has shifted, hasn't it? Those thoughts that used to hijack your entire day now feel distant, like background noise you can choose to ignore. You're not making decisions from panic anymore. You're not lying awake calculating worst-case scenarios until your chest feels tight. This isn't positive thinking, beloved. This is divine intervention. When God takes residence in your life, he brings order to chaos. Proverbs 16:9 says, "The heart of man plans his way, but the Lord establishes his steps." Your mind isn't racing anymore because you're not carrying the weight of figuring everything out alone. You used to check your bank account with dread. Now you check it with curiosity. You used to answer the phone afraid of bad news. Now you answer it ready for whatever God is orchestrating. That's not maturity. That's the mind of Christ settling into your consciousness like morning light filling a dark room. The second sign: your triggers have lost their power. Here's where it gets really supernatural. Those people who used to push every button you had, they're still the same people, saying the same things, but something inside you has become unshakable. Your ungrateful adult child calls with another crisis, another demand, another guilt trip about how you failed them 30 years ago. And instead of that familiar knife twist in your gut, instead of the sleepless nights defending yourself to an imaginary jury, nothing. Just compassion, just clear boundaries, just peace that doesn't need to explain itself. That neighbor who's been making your life miserable for 15 years, still there, still complaining, still throwing their opinions over your fence like garbage, but you're not collecting it anymore. You're not rehearsing comebacks in the shower. You're not letting their poison leak into your spirit. This is what Isaiah 54:17 means when it declares, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper." The weapons are still being formed, dear one. People are still throwing their hurt at you like stones. But nothing is penetrating anymore. Nothing is prospering against the fortress God has built around your heart. You know why? Because when God personally visits your life, he doesn't just comfort you, he insulates you. He creates a buffer zone between your peace and other people's chaos. Their storm is still raging, but you're standing in the eye of it, untouchable. The third sign: you've become a carrier of peace. This is the most mysterious sign, and it's happening whether you realize it or not. You walk into rooms differently now. You don't announce it. You don't try to manufacture it. But peace follows you like expensive perfume, subtle, unmistakable, lingering long after you've left. Your grandchildren calm down when you hold them. Strangers at the grocery store start conversations they never planned to have. That cashier who's always rushed and rude suddenly slows down, makes eye contact, asks how your day is going. Waitresses linger at your table. Neighbors find excuses to chat over the fence. They can't explain it. They don't have theological language for what they're sensing, but they know something different is radiating from you, something that feels like safety, something that whispers, everything's going to be okay. Luke 2:14 speaks of peace on earth to those on whom his favor rests. You've become a living expression of that favor. God's peace isn't just in you anymore, it's through you, touching everyone in your atmosphere without you having to work at it. Think about when someone you love wears a particular fragrance. Hours after they've left the room, you can still catch traces of their scent. You smile because you know they were there. Their presence left evidence. So it is with God, chosen one. So it is with you. People are beginning to sense that someone has been in the room of your life. They can't see him, but they can feel the residue of his presence on you. They don't know why being around you feels different, but they keep coming back for more of whatever it is you're carrying. Your own family members are starting to notice. Mom, you seem, I don't know, calmer lately. Grandpa, there's something different about you. They can't put their finger on it, but they're right. Someone has been living in your house, and his presence is impossible to hide. This isn't about becoming perfect. This isn't about never having bad days. This is about carrying something so real, so tangible, that it changes the molecular structure of every space you enter. This is about becoming a walking sanctuary where heaven touches earth. Have you felt that? Have you noticed strangers responding to you differently? Have you caught yourself being unshakable in situations that used to devastate you? Have you sensed that your very presence is bringing something peaceful into chaos? Type peace is here if you've tasted it, if you recognize these signs in your own life. Because what I'm about to tell you next will reveal why God chose to visit you personally and what he's preparing you for. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. Something has been happening in your life that you can't quite explain, and it's driving you crazy. People are falling away. Not dramatically, not with fights or arguments, they're just fading. That friend who used to call every week, silent. That family member who always had time for you, suddenly busy. That church group you belonged to for 20 years, you don't feel connected anymore. And it's not just people. The things that used to fill your time, the television shows, the social media scrolling, the endless phone calls about nothing, they don't satisfy anymore. You sit down to watch your favorite program and you're restless within 10 minutes. You pick up that book that used to captivate you and the words feel hollow. You try to lose yourself in the old routines and you feel like you're suffocating. Why is this happening? Why does everything that used to work suddenly feel empty? Here's what no one is telling you. This isn't coincidence. This isn't aging. This isn't depression. This is divine strategy. God is clearing the deck. Think about Joseph for a moment. Genesis 39 tells us he was thrown into prison for a crime he didn't commit. For 2 years, he rotted in that cell while everyone forgot about him. 2 years. Can you imagine? He must have wondered why God allowed his life to be stripped away, why his connections were severed, why he was isolated from everything familiar. But here's what Joseph couldn't see from inside that prison. God wasn't punishing him, God was positioning him. Because when Pharaoh had his dream, when Egypt needed someone to interpret divine revelation, who did they call? Not someone from the palace, not someone with political connections. They called the man who had been refined in isolation, tested in silence, prepared in the place of rejection. 24 hours later, Joseph went from prisoner to prime minister, from forgotten to Pharaoh's right hand, from the pit to the palace. But it only happened because everything else had to fall away first. Look at Esther, a Jewish orphan girl, hidden away with her uncle Mordecai. Esther 2:7 says she was lovely in form and features, but she was also invisible. Nobody knew her name. Nobody cared about her story. She was just another face in the crowd, living a quiet life, completely disconnected from power and influence. Until the moment came when God needed someone on the inside, someone who could stand before the king, someone who could save an entire nation from genocide. And who did he choose? not the obvious candidate, not someone who was already in position. He chose the hidden one, the overlooked one, the one whose connections had been severed, so that when the moment came, she would depend on God alone. Who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this? Mordecai asked her in Esther 4:14. For such a time as this. You think you're being isolated, but you're being positioned. You think you're losing relevance, but you're gaining purpose. You think people are leaving your life randomly, but God is strategically placing you where He needs you to be. This is what happened to a man named Morgan Freeman, rejected by Hollywood for decades, cast aside, told he was too old, too unknown, too late to the game. He spent his 50s wondering if he'd missed his shot at greatness, but at 67 years old, 67, he landed the role that made him a legend, not when he was young and eager, when he was seasoned and ready. Because some assignments require gray hair. Some callings need the wisdom that only comes from decades of disappointment, transformed into determination. The enemy wants you to believe that this season of stripping away is evidence that God has forgotten you, that you're being sidelined, that your time has passed. But what if it's the opposite? What if you're being prepared for something so significant that everything else had to be removed so you could focus? What if this isolation isn't rejection, it's selection? What if this silence isn't abandonment, it's appointment? What if this emptiness isn't an ending, it's the making of space for something magnificent? You see, most people think God visits just to comfort, just to give you a hug and tell you everything's going to be okay. But that's not what's happening here. You are not being visited only for comfort, you are being positioned for assignment. This divine setup has been months, maybe years in the making. Every door that closed was redirecting you. Every person who walked away was making room. Every distraction that lost its appeal was clearing your focus for what's coming next. But here's what's going to blow your mind. The assignment that God has been preparing you for doesn't look like what you think it looks like. It's not what you've been praying for. It's bigger, it's more urgent. It's more necessary than anything you've imagined. And you're going to need every ounce of the isolation He's given you, every bit of the simplification, every moment of the stripping away. Because what's coming next requires someone who isn't distracted by applause, isn't dependent on human approval, isn't confused by competing voices. Someone who has learned to hear God in the silence. Someone who has been trained in the secret place. Someone who has been tested when no one was watching and proven faithful when faithfulness made no sense. That someone is you. Right now, in this very moment, the final preparations are being made. The last distractions are being removed. The ultimate positioning is taking place, and you're about to discover something about yourself, a single phrase, a divine designation that will shatter every limitation you've ever accepted and catapult you into a purpose so powerful it will leave you breathless. Are you ready to discover what God has been preparing you to become? Listen to me carefully, chosen one. What I'm about to tell you might terrify you, but it's the truth you need to hear. When God shows up personally at your door, when He crosses the threshold of your life, the shaking doesn't stop when He enters. It begins. You thought the visitation was the event, but the visitation is just the earthquake. What comes after that's where everything you thought you knew about your life gets turned upside down. Right now, some of you are sitting there thinking, but what if I'm not ready for this kind of disruption? What if I lose everything I've worked so hard to build? And I want to look you dead in the eye through this screen and tell you something that's going to cut deep. What you're afraid of losing was never really yours to begin with. That carefully constructed life you've been protecting, those routines that make you feel safe, those relationships you've been managing instead of living. Dear one, that's not home. That's survival. And God didn't come to help you survive. He came to help you live. When the Holy Spirit moves into your house, He doesn't redecorate, He renovates. And renovation is messy, loud, and uncomfortable. Walls come down, foundations get reset. Things you thought were permanent suddenly become movable. The question isn't whether change is coming. The question is whether you're going to resist it or flow with it. Think about when Jesus walked into the temple in Matthew 21:12. The Bible says he overturned the tables of the money changers and drove out those who were buying and selling. But notice something crucial. He wasn't destroying the temple, he was restoring it to its original purpose. "My house shall be called a house of prayer," he declared. That's what's happening to you right now. God isn't coming to destroy what you've built. He's coming to restore you to your original design. And if that means some tables need to be overturned, some merchants need to be driven out, some systems need to be dismantled, so be it. But here's what breaks my heart. Some of you are so attached to your dysfunction that you'd rather stay comfortable in chaos than step into divine order. You've gotten so used to managing your mess that you've forgotten what peace feels like. You've been living in survival mode for so long that abundance feels foreign. Let me ask you something that's going to shake you. What if the very thing you're afraid to lose is the prison that's been keeping you from your purpose? What if that job that's draining your soul isn't security, it's slavery? What if that relationship that demands you shrink yourself isn't love, it's manipulation? What if those habits you can't break aren't comfort, they're chains? When God moves into your space, He brings a divine intolerance for anything that diminishes His dwelling place. And beloved, you are His dwelling place. 1 Corinthians 6:19 makes it crystal clear. Do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit, who is in you, whom you have received from God? Your body is a temple, your mind is a sanctuary, your heart is the Holy of Holies. And when the owner of the house shows up, everything that doesn't belong gets evicted. Not tomorrow, not next week. Now, this is why your sleep patterns are changing. This is why certain people suddenly feel toxic to be around. This is why that entertainment you used to love now feels empty. This is why your tolerance for small talk and surface conversations has evaporated. You're not becoming antisocial, you're becoming aligned. The holy intruder doesn't just visit, he occupies. He doesn't just comfort, he corrects. He doesn't just bless, he rearranges. And once he's moved in, dear one, there's no going back to the way things were. But let me tell you what you gain when you stop fighting the renovation. You gain discernment that cuts through deception like a sword. You gain peace that doesn't make sense to anyone watching from the outside. You gain purpose that pulls you forward instead of driving you crazy. You gain a voice that carries authority because it's been tuned to heaven's frequency. Isaiah 43:19 promises, "See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland." But notice He's not repairing the old thing. He's doing a new thing. And new requires the death of what was. This is why some relationships are ending without explanation. This is why certain doors are closing that you desperately wanted to stay open. This is why your old coping mechanisms aren't working anymore. God isn't punishing you, He's preparing you. He's making room for what He's about to birth in your life. The foundation of your existence is being reset to handle the weight of what's coming. The walls of your understanding are being expanded to contain the revelation that's downloading. The electrical system of your spirit is being rewired to carry the voltage of heaven. And yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it's disorienting. Yes, there are moments when you'll want to beg God to just let you go back to normal. But chosen one, normal was never your assignment. Normal was your hiding place, and your season of hiding is over. Here's what I need you to understand as we move forward. This divine disruption you're experiencing isn't random, it's strategic. God isn't rearranging your life for His entertainment. He's positioning you for something that requires a completely different version of you than the one who's been settling for less than his best. In just a moment, I'm going to reveal the 3 secret assignments that always follow a divine visitation. The 3 missions that God never announces in advance but always activates after He's moved into your space. But first, I need you to make a decision that will determine everything about how this unfolds. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. Something shifted the moment you said, "I'm ready," didn't it? That wasn't just a comment you typed. That was a covenant you made with eternity. And now, right now, heaven is responding with something that will transform not just your understanding, but your very existence. You see, God doesn't visit empty-handed. He doesn't show up to your door just to chat about the weather or check on how you're doing. When the Almighty comes personally, when He steps into your space, He comes with assignments. Divine assignments that have been waiting in the vault of eternity, with your name written on them since before you were born. But here's what's going to shock you. Here's what the religious world doesn't want you to know. You've been walking around thinking you're ordinary. You've been living like you're just another face in the crowd, just another senior citizen counting down days until... what? Until you fade away quietly. That's a lie from the pit of hell. The truth is, you've been carrying divine assignments your entire life without even knowing it. That peace you bring into chaos, that clarity you see when everyone else is confused, that voice that speaks wisdom when the world has gone mad, those weren't accidents, those were previews, rehearsals, preparation for what God is about to officially release through you. Matthew 25-21 says, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will set you over much." Did you catch that? Faithful over a little. You've been in training, beloved. Every hardship, every test, every moment you chose faith over fear, it was all preparation for these assignments. Assignment number 1, the keeper of peace. You carry peace into rooms where storms once ruled. You think it's just your personality, don't you? You think it's just because you're older, wiser, calmer. But that's not what this island. This is divine assignment activating through your presence. Think about it. How many times have you walked into a family argument and somehow, without saying a word, the temperature dropped? How many times have you sat with someone who was falling apart and they left feeling inexplicably better? How many times has your very presence shifted the atmosphere from chaos to calm? That's not coincidence, that's commission. Isaiah 26:3 declares, "You will keep him in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on you." But here's the revelation that will rock your world. God doesn't just give you peace, He makes you a carrier of it. He makes you a walking sanctuary where His presence dwells so powerfully that storms can't survive in your vicinity. Assignment number 2, the carrier of clarity. Others will borrow your eyes because yours see further. You've been wondering why people keep coming to you for advice, haven't you? Why they ask for your opinion on decisions that have nothing to do with you. Why they value your perspective, even when you feel like you don't have all the answers. It's because God has given you prophetic sight, not the dramatic, loud kind that makes headlines, the quiet kind, the steady kind, the kind that cuts through confusion like a knife through butter and sees straight to the heart of matters. Proverbs 20:5 says, "The purpose in a man's heart is like deep water, but a man of understanding will draw it out." That's you, chosen one. You've been given the ability to draw out purpose, to see through the surface noise, to discern what really matters when everyone else is distracted by what doesn't. You see patterns where others see chaos. You recognize God's hand where others see coincidence. You understand timing where others see delay. This isn't wisdom that came from books or experience alone. This is divine intelligence downloaded into your spirit. Assignment number 3, the voice of legacy. You will speak words that outlive you. Every word you speak from this day forward carries weight in the spiritual realm. Your voice has been seasoned by decades of walking with God, refined by trials, purified by fire. When you speak now, heaven listens, earth responds, hell trembles. Deuteronomy 8:3 reminds us that man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of the Lord. But here's the mystery. God often speaks His words through human vessels, through chosen ones who have proven faithful, through voices that have been tested and found true. Your grandchildren need to hear what God is saying through you. Your community needs the wisdom that flows from your lips. This generation needs the voice of someone who has walked through valleys and climbed mountains and can testify that God is faithful. But here's the climax moment that will change everything you thought you knew about your purpose. Visitation without assignment is comfort, but visitation with assignment is destiny. God didn't come to your house just to make you feel better. He didn't visit your life just to encourage you through another day. He came to activate what He planted in you before time began. He came to commission you for the final act of your earthly assignment. You're not in the sunset of your life, beloved. You're in the sunrise of your authority. You're not winding down, you're powering up. You're not becoming irrelevant. You're becoming essential. The question that will determine your legacy is this: will you embrace these assignments, or will you keep living like they don't exist? I need you to do something right now that will bind you publicly to your prophetic purpose. In the comments below, declare one assignment that resonates most powerfully with your spirit. Type "I am the keeper of peace," or "I am the carrier of clarity," or "I am the voice of legacy." Make it official, make it public, make it real. Because when you declare your assignment, heaven takes notice. And when heaven takes notice, everything in your life aligns to support that calling. But understanding your assignments is only the beginning, because what's coming next will show you exactly how these divine commissions will transform not just your life, but every life you touch. Listen to me very carefully, chosen one. I need you to understand something that's going to change how you see every attack you've ever endured. Why has your life been so hard? Why have you faced betrayals that cut deeper than a knife? Why have you battled depression that feels like drowning while standing up? Why have people you trusted most turned their backs on you at your most vulnerable moments? Here's the truth that will shatter everything you thought you knew about your struggles. The enemy didn't attack your past. He feared your future. Think about this. Thieves don't break into empty houses. They don't waste time on vacant lots. They don't risk everything to steal from people who have nothing worth taking. When a thief cases a neighborhood, he's looking for one thing: value. Signs of treasure, evidence that something precious lives inside. Your warfare is your receipt. Your battles are your proof of purchase. The intensity of the opposition you faced is heaven's own testimony that you carry something the kingdom of darkness cannot afford to let loose. But why you? Why has hell mobilized against your life with such vicious precision? Because you're not just anyone, you're marked. You've been carrying divine DNA since before you drew your first breath. Jeremiah 1-5 declares, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." Set apart. Not just loved, marked for destiny that terrifies the powers of darkness. The enemy saw what God planted in you before you even knew it existed. He saw your future influence, your coming authority, your eventual breakthrough, and he panicked. So he launched a preemptive strike, not against who you were, but against who you were becoming. Every financial crisis that should have destroyed you but didn't. Every health scare that should have taken you out but couldn't. Every relationship that imploded just when you thought you'd found stability. None of it was random. All of it was strategic warfare against your divine assignment. Look at David, a shepherd boy, forgotten by his own father when the prophet came calling. But the moment Samuel anointed him as future king, what happened? King Saul, who didn't even know David existed, suddenly couldn't sleep for thinking about him, couldn't eat for plotting against him, couldn't rest for pursuing him. Why? Because anointing creates enemies, purpose attracts opposition, destiny draws demons like blood draws sharks. Your depression wasn't just chemical imbalance. Your anxiety wasn't just stress. Your sleepless nights weren't just worry. They were spiritual attacks against someone heaven refuses to lose. But here's what breaks my heart. Here's what makes my spirit burn with righteous anger. While you've been fighting for your life, you've been apologizing for taking up space. While hell has been mobilizing armies against you, you've been questioning if you even matter. You've been living like a victim when you're actually a target. And there's a difference. Victims are chosen randomly. Targets are selected strategically. The enemy doesn't waste premium warfare on discount people. He doesn't deploy his best demons against ordinary lives. The very fact that you've been under such intense fire is proof, undeniable proof that you carry something he desperately wants to stop. Think about Job. The Bible says in Job 1-8 that God himself pointed Job out to Satan. Have you considered my servant Job? Not because Job was weak, but because Job was so righteous, so powerful in his faith, that God used him as exhibit A of what human devotion looks like. What happened next? Everything was stripped away. Wealth, family, health gone. But here's what Satan didn't count on. Here's what hell never factors into their calculations. The same fire meant to destroy was actually refining. The same pressure meant to crush was actually creating diamonds. Job 23:10 captures it perfectly. But he knows the way that I take. When he has tested me, I will come forth as gold. You didn't survive everything you survived by accident. You didn't make it through the valley of the shadow of death by luck. You didn't overcome what should have overcome you by willpower. You survived because God has been fighting for you when you didn't even know there was a battle. You made it because angels have been assigned to your case. You overcame because greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. But why now? Why are we talking about this tonight? Because the season of attack is ending. The time of testing is complete. You've proven what heaven already knew, that you can be trusted with pressure, tested with fire, and still emerge with your faith intact. The enemy threw everything he had at you. His best lies, his fiercest demons, his most devastating circumstances. And you're still here, still breathing, still believing, still standing. That's not human resilience. That's divine confirmation. Romans 8:31 asks the question that settles everything. If God is for us, who can be against us? The answer is simple. Anyone can be against you, but no one can defeat you. Opposition can come, but outcome is already determined. The warfare you've endured wasn't punishment for something you did wrong. It was preparation for something you're about to do right. Soon, I will show you the prophetic key to silence every lie the enemy has whispered over you. But first, you need to understand this. Your battles weren't meant to break you. They were meant to break off everything that wasn't really you. Every attack that failed to destroy you only made you stronger. Every weapon formed against you that didn't prosper only proved Isaiah 54:17 true. Every scheme of hell that collapsed only demonstrated that no weapon formed against God's chosen can stand. But what happens when someone who's been through hell finally realizes they're not just a survivor, they're a weapon? Listen to me carefully, chosen one. For decades, maybe your entire life, you've been carrying a lie so deep, so poisonous, that it's become the voice in your head when you wake up at 3 a.m. That voice that whispers, "You missed it. Your time is over. God moved on without you." That voice has a name. It's called deception. And tonight, we're going to shatter it like glass. You see, the enemy's greatest weapon isn't temptation. It's not addiction or depression or even death. His greatest weapon is the lie that you've been forgotten, that somehow, in the cosmic filing system of heaven, your folder got misplaced, that while God was handing out purposes and callings and divine appointments, he skipped over your house, walked right past your door, forgot your name. But what if I told you something that would change everything you've believed about yourself? Heaven never misplaced your file. Right now, in the throne room of the Almighty, there's an ancient scroll with your name written in letters of fire, not typed, not printed, etched, carved deep by the finger of God himself before the first star lit up the sky. Jeremiah 1-5 declares it with thunderous authority. "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. Before you were born, before your first breath, before your first mistake, before your first disappointment, you were known, you were chosen, you were set apart." But the enemy knew this too, and he's spent 70, 80, maybe 90 years of your life trying to convince you otherwise. He's whispered through every rejection, every closed door, every unanswered prayer. "See, God doesn't really see you. You're not that special. You're just ordinary. Do you know why he worked so hard to silence you? Do you know why the attacks have been so relentless, so personal, so targeted? Because he saw what was written on that scroll. He saw the assignment that has your name on it, and he's been terrified, absolutely terrified of the day you would remember who you really are. That day is today. You thought you were too late. But Psalm 139:16 says, "All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be." Every single day you've lived, including today, was already written in God's book. That means this moment, this awakening, this divine appointment was scheduled before time began. You thought you were too weak. But 2 Corinthians 12:9 reminds us that God's strength is made perfect in weakness. The very thing that made you feel disqualified is what qualifies you for His power. Your weakness isn't your limitation. It's your invitation for divine strength to show up and show off. You thought you were too forgotten. But Isaiah 49:16 declares something that will shatter every doubt. "See, I have engraved you on the palms of my hands, not written in pencil, not saved in a computer file, engraved, permanent, unchangeable." Every time Jesus opens his hands to bless, he sees your name. But here's where it gets personal. Here's where heaven's record-keeping becomes intensely intimate. Every tear you've cried in secret, Psalm 56:8 says God has collected them in a bottle. Every prayer you've whispered in desperation, they're stored like incense in golden bowls before His throne in Revelation 5:8. Every night you felt alone, He's been recording it all, not as evidence against you, but as evidence for you. The scroll is opening right now. Can you feel it? That stirring in your chest, that electricity in the atmosphere. That's not your imagination. That's the sound of your true name, being called from the throne room of eternity. Not too late, not too weak, not too forgotten. Say it with me. Not too late, not too weak, not too forgotten. Let it sink into the deepest places of your soul, where that lie has been living rent-free for decades. You are not an afterthought in God's plan. You are not a consolation prize. You are not the backup singer in someone else's symphony. You are the main event that heaven has been waiting for. But here's the urgent truth that will either liberate you or leave you exactly where you are. This revelation has an expiration date, not because God changes His mind, but because time is running short. The harvest is ready. The laborers are few. And you, yes, you sitting there thinking you're past your prime, you are one of the laborers. Heaven has been preparing for such a time as this. Moses was 80 when God called him to deliver a nation. Abraham was 100 when he received his promise. Anna the prophetess was 84 when she recognized the Messiah. Your age isn't your limitation, it's your qualification. Your experience isn't your disqualification, it's your equipment. The enemy lied to you about your timing. He lied to you about your worth. He lied to you about your purpose. But the scroll is open now, and the truth is being revealed. If something inside you is confirming these words, if your spirit is bearing witness to this truth, if you're ready to reclaim the name that was always yours, then I need you to do something prophetic right now. Type "I reclaim my name" in the comments. Don't think about it. Don't hesitate. Don't let doubt creep back in. Declare it. Type it. Claim it. Because when you do, you're not just typing words on a screen. You're speaking into the spiritual realm. You're announcing to heaven and earth that the lie is broken, the deception is shattered, and the chosen one has remembered who they are. But reclaiming your name is just the beginning. Because now that you know who you are, now that the scroll is open, now that your true identity has been revealed, God has something specific. He wants to tell you about what comes next. Dear chosen one, I need to tell you something that's going to change how you see the next 7 days of your life. Something is accelerating in the spiritual realm right now. Can you feel it? That restlessness in your chest, that sense that time itself is speeding up around you. You've been praying about the same thing for years, haven't you? Maybe it's your health. Maybe it's your children who've walked away from God. Maybe it's financial breakthrough that seems to slip through your fingers every time you think it's within reach. You've cried the same tears, whispered the same desperate prayers, carried the same burden until your shoulders ache with the weight of it all. But what if I told you that every single prayer you've ever prayed has been building toward this moment? What if every tear you've shed in secret has been watering ground that's about to crack open with supernatural harvest? Listen to me carefully. In Joshua chapter 6, God told the Israelites to march around the walls of Jericho for 7 days. 7 days. Can you imagine how they felt on day 3, day 5, walking the same path, seeing the same impossible walls, hearing their own footsteps echo off stones that seemed immovable since the beginning of time? Those walls had stood for generations, massive, intimidating, mocking every dream of breakthrough the Israelites had ever dared to dream. And God's strategy: walk around them again and again and again. But here's what the enemy didn't know. Here's what those walls couldn't see. Every step was building supernatural pressure. Every march was accumulating divine momentum. Every lap around that city was loading heaven's arsenal for total destruction of what stood in their way. Joshua 6:20 tells us exactly what happened. When the trumpet sounded, the army shouted, and at the sound of the trumpet, when the men gave a loud shout, the wall collapsed. Not cracked, not damaged, collapsed, completely, instantaneously. One moment standing defiant, the next moment reduced to rubble. Chosen one, you have been marching around your Jericho for far too long. Every sleepless night you've spent praying over your prodigal son that was a lap around the wall. Every time you've cried out to God about your failing marriage, another march. Every desperate plea for healing, for provision, for restoration, you've been walking in divine formation, building pressure that the enemy cannot see, but heaven is measuring with precision. Your wall is trembling right now. I know you can't see it with your natural eyes, but in the spiritual realm, cracks are forming, stress fractures are spreading. What has stood against you for decades is about to meet the sound of heaven's trumpet. But here's where it gets personal. Here's where this word becomes prophetic over your life specifically. 7 days from the moment you hear my voice speaking these words, evidence will surface. Not the full breakthrough, not yet, but evidence. A sign, a confirmation that what God has been building in secret is about to manifest in plain sight. It might be a phone call you weren't expecting. It might be news that changes everything. It might be a door opening that you thought was permanently sealed. It might be peace flooding your heart in a way you haven't felt in years. But something will happen within 7 days that will make you say, God really was listening. God really was working. God really was preparing my breakthrough while I was wondering if he had forgotten my name. Why 7 days? Because 7 is God's number of completion. 7 days of creation, 7 times around Jericho, 7 years for Jacob to win Rachel's hand. In Hebrew culture, 7 represents divine perfection and the completion of one season before the inauguration of another. Your season of circling the same mountain is ending. Your season of breakthrough is beginning. But I need you to do something right now that's going to require faith you might not feel you have. I need you to write down today's date. Whether it's in your journal, on a piece of paper, or right here in the comments below, write today's date. This is your covenant timestamp. This is the day heaven marks as the beginning of your 7-day countdown. Don't just think about it. Do it. Because faith without action is dead, and what God is about to do in your life requires your participation. James 2:26 reminds us, faith without deeds is dead. Your willingness to write that date is your declaration that you believe God's word over your circumstances. Some of you are hesitating because you've been disappointed before, you've hoped before and been crushed. You've believed before and been left holding broken promises from people who weren't God. But listen to me, God's track record is perfect. He has never failed to keep a promise. Numbers 23:19 declares, God is not human, that he should lie, not a human being, that he should change his mind. Does he speak and then not act? Does he promise and not fulfill? The walls that have mocked your prayers are about to become the rubble you walk over into your promised land. The obstacles that have defined your limitations are about to become stepping stones into your destiny. The impossibilities that have whispered never in your ear are about to be silenced by the sound of heaven's victory shout. This day will divide your life into before and after. Before the breakthrough and after the breakthrough. Before the healing and after the healing. Before the restoration and after the restoration. 7 days, chosen one. Mark it, believe it, prepare for it. But as we count down to your divine moment, there's something else stirring in the spiritual atmosphere around you that you need to understand. Listen to me, dear one. I see you sitting there, maybe in that same chair you've occupied for the last 5 years, watching the world spin faster while you feel like you're standing still. I see the way you look in the mirror and wonder if your time has passed. The way you scroll through social media and see younger faces achieving dreams while you whisper to yourself, I guess that ship has sailed. But what if I told you that everything you believe about your age is a lie straight from the pit of hell? What if I told you that while you've been apologizing for your silver hair, God has been polishing it like lightning? What if I told you that those lines on your face aren't marks of decline, but holy calligraphy, each one etched by the finger of God, writing your story of survival, endurance, and faith that refused to die? The enemy has been whispering poison in your ear for years. You're too old. You missed your chance. Your dreams expired with your youth. Step aside and let the younger generation take over. That's not God's voice. That's the voice of limitation, and limitation has no place in the kingdom of heaven. You want to know why the devil works so hard to convince seniors they're irrelevant? Because he knows something you've forgotten. He knows that your gray hair is silver lightning. He knows that your wrinkles are battle scars from victories hell couldn't steal. He knows that your age isn't your weakness, it's your weapon. Think about Moses, 80 years old when God called him to the burning bush. 80. The world would have put him in a retirement home, but God was just getting started with him. For the next 40 years, Moses would part seas, lead nations, and speak face to face with the Almighty. His greatest chapters weren't written in his youth, they were written when the world called him over the hill. Think about Abraham, 99 years old when God promised him a son. His body was already as good as dead. Sarah's womb was barren, but God said, "This is when I do my best work." And Isaac wasn't just a baby, he was the beginning of a nation that would bless every family on earth. Think about Anna the prophetess. 84 years old, widowed for decades, spending her final years in the temple, while others her age were settling into quiet resignation. But when baby Jesus was brought to the temple, it wasn't the young priests who recognized him, it was Anna. Her aged eyes saw what youthful vision missed. Her decades of prayer had prepared her for the moment that would change history. Do you understand what this means for you right now? Your age isn't your disqualification, it's your certification. Every year you've lived, every storm you've weathered, every mountain you've climbed has been preparing you for this moment when God says, Now you're ready for what I've been saving. But here's what breaks my heart. Here's what makes me want to weep. You've been living like your purpose has an expiration date. You've been acting like God puts his children out to pasture when they hit Medicare age. You've been believing that your best days are behind you when Scripture screams the opposite. Psalm 92:14 declares, "They will still bear fruit in old age. They will stay fresh and green, not dried up, not finished, not forgotten." Fresh and green at 70, at 80, at 90 years old. But the world has programmed you to think otherwise, hasn't it? They've convinced you that innovation belongs to the young, that energy equals effectiveness, that gray hair means game over. But that's because the world doesn't understand how God's kingdom operates. In God's economy, your silver hair is a crown of glory. Your slower pace isn't decline, it's divine timing. Your need for rest isn't weakness, it's wisdom that knows when to be still and when to move. You carry something the younger generation doesn't have: the authority of endurance. You've been tested by time and proven faithful. You've walked through valleys that would have broken weaker souls. You've survived betrayals, buried dreams, and still chose to believe. That's not just experience, that's spiritual weaponry. The young ones have energy, but you have authority. They have passion, but you have proven character. They have dreams, but you have demonstrated faith. And right now, in this hour when the world is desperate for stability, for wisdom, for voices that have been through the fire and come out refined, God is calling his elders to the front lines. You think you're too old to start something new? Colonel Sanders was 65 when he built the KFC empire. Laura Ingalls Wilder didn't publish her first Little House book until she was 65. Grandma Moses didn't start painting until she was 78 and became one of America's most celebrated artists. But this isn't just about earthly achievement. This is about eternal assignment. God has been marinating you in wisdom, seasoning you with experience, preparing you for a ministry that could only come from someone who's learned to trust him in every season. Your grandchildren need to see what real faith looks like when it's been tested by time. This generation needs to hear from warriors who've been through hell and still praise God. The world needs to witness what happens when someone refuses to let age define their assignment. You're not retiring from purpose, you're graduating into it. You're not winding down, you're being wound up for your finest hour. Because the same God who split the Red Sea through an 80-year-old Moses is the same God who wants to use your weathered hands to do the impossible. The question isn't whether you're qualified. The question is, will you stop believing the lies about your limitations and start walking in the truth about your calling? If this message is igniting something in your spirit, if you feel that ancient fire stirring in your bones, I want you to do something powerful. In the comments below, write a prayer of blessing for the younger generation. Pass on the wisdom that your years have earned. Let them see that age doesn't diminish. Anointing it amplifies it. Because what's coming next will require everything you've learned, every battle you've won, every scar you've earned. God is about to reveal why he kept you here this long. Beloved chosen one, as we come to the end of this sacred encounter, I need you to remember 3 eternal truths that will anchor your soul in the storms ahead. First, you are not forgotten. Every gray hair on your head, every line etched by time, every battle scar you carry, they are all evidence that God has been with you through every season. He hasn't brought you this far to abandon you now. Your age isn't a countdown to irrelevance, it's a wind-up to your greatest assignment. Second, your wisdom is a weapon. Every year you've lived, every trial you've survived, every mountain you've climbed has been preparing you for this moment. You're not too old to make a difference. You're finally seasoned enough to make the difference that matters most. Moses began at 80. Abraham fathered nations past 90. Your greatest fruit is ripening right now. Third, God is coming to you personally, not as a distant deity, but as a father who's been watching, waiting, preparing to step into your space, your struggles, your silence. He's not coming to inspect your imperfections, he's coming to inhabit your life with his presence. But hear me clearly, you are not walking this path alone. Even when the nights feel long and the prayers seem to echo in empty air, you are surrounded by a cloud of witnesses. And right here, right now, you have a community of fellow believers who understand your journey, who felt that same divine restlessness, who know what it means to carry a calling that the world doesn't understand. We are here, we see you, we believe in you, and more importantly, we will pray with you. Let me ask you this one final question, and let it settle deep into your spirit. If God has preserved you through every storm, sustained you through every trial, and positioned you for this exact moment in history, what will you do with the time he's given you? Before I release you into your destiny, let me place my hands on your shoulders through these words and pray over your life with the authority of 5 decades walking with the Almighty. Heavenly Father, I come before your throne right now, lifting up every precious soul who has stayed with us through this message. Lord, you see them sitting there, maybe alone in their living room, maybe fighting back tears, may be wrestling with doubts about their purpose and their future. Father, breathe fresh hope into their weary bones tonight. God, silence every voice that has whispered too late over their lives. Break every chain of limitation that has convinced them their best days are behind them. Open their eyes to see what you see, not someone whose time has passed, but someone whose time has finally come. Father, pour out your Spirit upon them right now. Let them feel your presence surrounding them like a warm embrace. Where they feel forgotten, remind them they are engraved on your palms. Where they feel weak, let your strength be made perfect. Where they feel uncertain, flood them with supernatural clarity about their calling. Lord, bless their health, strengthen their bodies, renew their minds, give them dreams and visions that will guide their steps. Surround them with divine connections, people who will recognize their wisdom and honor their experience. Open doors that no man can shut and close doors that lead nowhere. Most of all, Father, let them know they are loved beyond measure, chosen beyond doubt, and called beyond their wildest imagination. Let this be the night everything changes. Let this be the moment they stop apologizing for their age and start celebrating their assignment. In the mighty name of Jesus, who makes all things new, I seal this prayer over their lives. Amen. Now, I want to hear from you. In the comments below, share what God spoke to your heart tonight. Tell us how this message has impacted your spirit. Ask us to pray for specific areas of your life where you need breakthrough. This community will surround you with intercession and encouragement. And please share this message with someone who needs to hear it. There's someone in your family, your church, your neighborhood, who's been feeling exactly what you felt when you first clicked on this video. They need to know they're not alone. They need to know their time isn't over, it's just beginning. If this is your first time here, welcome to the family. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because every week we're diving deeper into God's heart for His chosen ones. We're building something beautiful together, a community where age is honored, wisdom is celebrated, and every person knows they are divinely loved and eternally significant. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Thank you for opening your heart, for letting these words penetrate the sacred chambers of your soul. Thank you for being brave enough to believe that maybe, just maybe, your greatest chapter is still being written. Remember, beloved, you are chosen, you are called, you are cherished, and you are never, ever alone. Until we meet again, walk in the dignity of your divine assignment. The King of Kings is coming to your house, and when He arrives, everything, absolutely everything, will be transformed. Go in peace, go in power, go in the unshakable knowledge that your time is now. God bless you, chosen one. Your story is far from over.